Hey there, viewers. Welcome back to the Self-Made Auto Channel. Got the 2014 Chevrolet. That's the Impala. That's got the big 2.4. I got a list here. Customer states 2014 Impala issues through a code P015A. Went away and then came back several times in a week. Took the car in. O2 sensor was replaced at the other shop, we'll call it. Picked up the car from the other shop and it stalled a few feet down the road and then restarted and ran fine. Reading this, I think he has two separate problems, but I'll read it to you anyways. Then disconnected that radio. Then discovered that the radio had been reset and all driver's controls on the steering wheel didn't work. When you turn wheel left to right, it muted the radio, changed stations, and asked you to respond verbally. Continued to stall, usually right after it was started. Took the car back, replaced oxygen sensor, still stalled, and driver controls on the wheel didn't work. Engine light came on again. Tried several things. Did get the light to go out, and the driver controls, with exception of cruise, did work. Radio was still acting the same when you turn the wheel left to right. Took the car and drove it for several weeks. Check engine light did come on once, but went out next day and stayed off. Still have driver controls, engine stalling, and radio issues to date. So that's the Cliff Notes version of what the customer wrote. Actually, it's exactly what the customer wrote. He wrote me his own Cliff Notes. It sounds to me that the customer has two separate issues. Sounds like there's something going wonky in the clock spring. So when he's turning the wheel, wires are touching. Usually they're, multiplex of some sort through there. So when things get some resistance on them or they start touching or go open, things get stupid. So we're going to kind of ignore the fact that when you turn the wheel, the radio goes nuts and the cruise doesn't work. Because that's semi-common and I don't think is related to the stalling issue. And the reason I don't think that is because I started the car and sure as sugar, left it here running, stone cold, just started it up, pulled it in, let it sit here and idle, and within a minute it stalled. Sounded like it ran itself out of fuel. Here comes the very lovely Mrs. O. We'll carry on our story in a moment here. What's up? Do you need me?
Yeah.
Privately?
Yes.
Not on camera. Stand by. I was glad to be of service to you.
You're so good.
The reason that I know it was running out of fuel is because I had my scan tool hooked to it. And I was just looking in generic data to see, is the drive cycle done? And it is. And it did have a pending code or a history code of that P015A, which is a O2 sensor slow response from rich to lean or from lean to rich. One of the others. A slow response to the front O2. I looked at it. It does appear the O2 sensor is new. I see the never see slobbered all over everything. But I saw something interesting, and that's why I turned on the camera. I was like, well, let's try to focus in on this problem because it doesn't seem that the front O2 sensor is actually working like it should. It seems to be biased high, like it won't go below 450 millivolts, which I thought was like, well, that's strange. The rear O2 seems to work and seems to be responsive, rich and lean. You can induce a vacuum leak and it, drops down. But what I thought was weird is the front O2 sensor was down around, it was below 450, it was around 300 millivolts. And I see the fuel trims just start going bonkers in this car, and then it stalled itself out. It was actually trying to trim away fuel. The short-term fuel trim went to minus 25 and literally ran the car out of gas while it sat here. I restarted it, and it just stayed in open loop for a very long time. And then I'm like, well, this is strange. Let's bring the people along and see what we discover. I did look in the back of the car. I see some parts, which include a computer. So I don't know how many parts they shotgunned at it or where they came from. I'm going to guess, Amazon or eBay. Because that's where, for whatever reason, everybody buys their parts from. So let's have a look and see what we can figure out. It's kind of a long-winded way to say the car stalls after you let it sit and run. But I just want to let you know where I was at. I thought it was going to be just something kind of silly, which it may still be. So we're in generic OBD2 data. And this is my favorite one to look at when it comes to just basic drivability concerns. Let's see. We can look at some OEM data if we have to. I'll take you in here to show you the drive cycle's complete. The monitors are all complete, and there's one code. that's in it. We'll go here, current code P015A, delayed response, rich to lean, bank 1 sensor 1. Let me go into some live data here, stand by. Just had to turn the furnace off there for you. And this is the data that I chose to look at. We have our fuel system status, short term, long term, and both O2 sensors. And right now we're just key on, engine off. And I didn't have it running for very long because it only got up to 80 degrees, I guess. Let's go ahead and start it, and we'll listen to the car in the background. We'll look at data. I know this isn't everybody's cup of tea, but like I say, what I was seeing is that the fuel trim went right off the chart trying to lean this thing out, and the upstream seemed just not working properly here. Stand by. Let's start it up. All right, fire in the hole. Let's make sure our data PIDs are live. We'll use that as our making sure it's a live data PID. Okay. So interestingly enough, this is working way different than it was, and it instantly went into closed loop. I really wish I would have started recording this initially. Let that go here. Okay, maybe it'll hang up here. We'll see. We'll let this run. Okay, here we go, folks. Look. Fuel trim's negative 25. We're below 450 millivolts. The engine's running super lean. It's gonna run itself right out of fuel. You can hear it loping back there. Okay, it recovered from that one. Last time that stalled, but look at that. It's doing it again. I don't know why it's cutting fuel. Because our we're below the 450 millivolt threshold, but it's not going all the way to 0. I would expect this to go all the way to 0 volts, like the rear O2. It's obviously this engine is running lean, and there it goes, it just stalled. So, super bizarre. I would think, this is just me talking out loud, that if we were below the 450 millivolts, which would be like the center line of anything above it's rich, anything below it's lean, is how I would interpret that. Why does that O2 sensor not go to 0 volts? Do we have a circuit problem? Why does the computer still see it as rich and still sees it trying to lean it out? Maybe the threshold is lower. Maybe it wants to see it below 250. I'm not real certain. Let me fire it back up here. So last time I did this, okay, so I started and it stayed in open loop, which is what we're seeing here. But then last time I did this is what happened. Both of these O2s were at 1.275 volts, and it just stayed here for quite a while. I had to give it some throttle. So I'm gonna let it sit here for a little bit and see if we can kind of duplicate the same thing that I was seeing. So we have some evidence, or just some data, not really evidence. We've collected data, and then we can go in and see what's happening. Now, one thing I'm thinking right now is are these data PIDs live? Are these O2 sensors? There's no way this thing would be running pig rich right now if this was the case. And it may be, but in open loop, we don't have any feedback. The computer's not doing any type of adjustment. I'm gonna reach in with a screwdriver and pump the brakes to create a vacuum leak and see if either one of these are responsive. Let me get a long screwdriver to reach through the window. Okay, so the rear is starting to come down a little bit. I'm gonna go pump the brakes, still in open loop, and see if either one of those O2s are responsive. Okay, I'm pumping the brakes. Okay, so the car stalled. So that's the equivalent. Pumping the brakes is just essentially creating a vacuum leak. The rear O2 sensor responded right down to 0, but look at this front O2 sensor. Let's fire this back up. All right, I'm gonna reach in and pump the brakes again just to see the response time. Let's see, we don't need engine RPM. Who cares about coolant temp anymore? Okay, now we got it all on one screen, what we want to see. Okay, stand by. Pumping the brakes. So that leaned it out. It's taking away fuel, hit closed loop, and boom, bingo bango, just like that. What in the world? I don't think this front O2 has the ability to go down low enough. I think we need to do some circuit checks on that front O2, I guess is the direction that I would go if it was me. That would be the thing I would be concerned in, and something that I would want to look at if it was me. And guess what? It is. Hopefully that makes sense to you folks. I think personally that we need to look at the upstream O2 sensor circuit. Like, why isn't that just our normal switching circuit from 0 to 1 volts, from lean to rich? And why does it seemed like when we started it, very first started off, I was like, oh, that looks like it's working, 0 to 1. It started switching immediately, and then it kind of started getting biased up. Is the heater circuit in it not working? But even if the heater doesn't work, usually there'll be, a slow response. They'll usually generally set a code for a heater circuit, but typically they still work, particularly in upstream, that close to the manifold. Not, it's a sometimes but not always case. O2 sensors didn't always have a heater circuit in them, but they still worked. And the design of O2 sensors is pretty similar, heated versus non-heated. But anyhow, we're not going to get into that. I think it's important that we know that our two main feedback sensors, which are O2 sensors in this case, are working, and that circuits are good. They can see rich and they can see lean, and they can go to both ends of their threshold. So let's get a wire diagram. O2 sensor on this is a great one. It's easy to do. We'll see if we can do some bypass checks. Does it have the ability? Can we pull that circuit down? Can we drive it low, drive it high? Is our ground good? Is our heater working? Stuff like that. And then we simply could have just a junk, O2 sensor, or we could have some kind of circuit problem. It seems like if they put two of them in it, one of them might have worked. And the thing that concerns me is prior to them, shotgunning some parts at it, it had this problem originally. So did something go goofy in the wiring, and, putting, our Amazon special in there just didn't hurt it, but also didn't help it. What's interesting is I see some fresh tape here, lots of it, but that appears to be coming from down below AC compressor. It's all part of this harness. So that's interesting. Perhaps it just lost its poly loom, but that is something let's keep in mind. That's a lot of fresh tape. I haven't looked up a diagram yet, but we will. Prior to doing that, we're gonna unplug the O2 sensor. We're gonna get it right off its bracket here if we can. There. And we're gonna cut the zip tie. We'll cut the zip tie here where they've got it all together. Get that out of the way. This way here we can unplug it, and we can have it up where we can touch it. Really surprised to not see it full of dielectric grease, to be honest with you. This definitely feels like Amazon or eBay. You can feel the Chinesium coming straight off from the connector. No markings or anything on it. I suspect we're likely just dealing with a junk O2. I could be wrong. This might be a name brand or something. I don't see any type of writing or anything on it. around the edges or anything like that. So let's just do this before we even get a diagram out. We're gonna grab ourselves a test light. We're gonna click it on battery negative, and we're key on engine off currently. Okay, our test light has good connection. We're gonna get a T-pin here. Now sometimes GMs can be a little funky on their O2 sensors. We won't get into it until we have to, but I've had some trouble doing some bypass testing, particularly on older General Motors stuff. I'm just gonna go through, take my T-pin, and I'm just gonna touch each one of these terminals and see if we have one that is the signal, and see if it pulls down our voltage down to 0. Okay, so we have a full-time power here, so that must be for our heater. Oh, yep, there we go. That pulled it to 0, and that puts it back to its bias at 1.275. So look, right there. So we must have been in the signal wire. And what that tells me is that the signal wire that runs from the computer, from the main brain box over to here, is good, and it has the ability to go to 0 volts. Okay, I'm gonna get a wiring diagram for realsy. We're gonna make some other circuit checks there, and if our circuit checks out, we're gonna get rid of whatever this O2 sensor is. We'll have to see if somebody has one in stock. Hopefully our local Chevrolet dealer. But let me get us a diagram here, folks, and then we can do some testing in real life. So I got us a diagram. We got an OEM diagram, be on the safe side. So we do have full-time power there. That's going to be for our heater. Looks like a violet with white. We have a gray with white, which is going to be our control for the heater. So we can check and make sure that works. Should have some bi-directional action here. Let's we'll exit out of that while we can, and we'll go right into some OEM data so we can turn that heater on off. So let's just make sure that's working. We have, this is going to be our signal wire here, which is violet with gray. And then we have a white with black, which is going to be our sensor ground. So I'll let this get loaded up. And we're just going to make some checks on this. And I'll share this with you. We're in the OEM side of things now, so we can see all the modules on the car and whatnot. And let's see here, we'll hit some active test. We should have an oxygen sensor. Okay, oxygen sensor heaters, oxygen sensor heater 1. So we should be able to turn this heater on and off. Sometimes GM doesn't like you to really do anything for too long here. Let's go like this. We're gonna use the smoke. This should let the smoke out of the box. It's not gonna let the smoke out. This is a direct fused circuit. Let's see here. Let me figure out how to use this here old tool. Okay, here we go. We're gonna go back into diagnostics. Our heater control right now is turned off, but we're looking at pin 1 and pin 2. Let's see, I think, therefore I have, let's see here, violet with white and gray with white, violet, white, gray with white. We're gonna stick the big honky across here. This is big. You know what, we probably shouldn't. That's still computer controlled, even though it is on a 10 amp circuit. Let's do this. Let's not take it to the stupid level. O2 heaters are usually a little on the lower amperage side. Let's turn it on. There it is. Hallelujah. And it shut off in good General Motors fashion. It's timed out and has locked us out of all other tests. Why? Because GM. Don't ask me why they do it, but it's enough to piss you off in most cases. Okay, so we know 2 out of 4 of those wires are A-OK. Now what we're going to do is we're going to test the other two wires. We know the signal wire is good because it's at its bias voltage when it's open circuited, and we just need to know if the ground is good. So that's easy enough to do because we can do it the same way. We're going to go into live data. We're going to find bank 1 sensor 102 sensor. We're going to look at that by itself. Show selected. We're going to put it in a little graphy, and it shows it sitting here on this side of the scan tool at 1.94 volts. And all we need to do, we can take our same little 194 test light with a couple probes, and I believe oh, you ding dong. I believe that is pins 3 and 4. And it is. So I'm going to jumper. We're going to take our jumper wires, or our jumper test light, because you can't hurt anything with this. And we're going to jumper 3 and 4. We're going to jumper the ground. We're going to jumper the ground to the signal wire. The ground to the signal wire. I'm sorry. Number 3, the ground, sensor ground to the signal wire. And what we expect to see, if everything's good in a perfect world, is we expect to see this go to 0.00. Light where I can see, pin 4, pin 3. See if that'll stay there for me right now. And we are at 0.00 volts. Okay, we remove our test light and we're back to our bias voltage. What's that tell us, folks? That tells us that we are either grossly overlooking something we don't know about because you don't know what you don't know, or we just have a bad sensor. In which case I'm going with the latter. This is an old car. Shouldn't be any surprises. The heater circuit functions. The sensor ground is good and the sensor signal wire is good. However, that O2 sensor is not seeming like it's working good. The rear one appears to work well. And I think this is what's screwing up everything. Let's grab a socket. All right, we got us an O2 sensor socket. Like I say, I can see the never sneeze slobbered all over this, so it should come out A-okay. Is it? Thought it just literally just felt loose. Whoa, dude. It says you need to get your glasses, is what it says. Assembled in USA. No wonder it doesn't work. Assembled in USA. I'm looking for any type of numbers around the base of it. I don't see anything. All it says is assembled in USA. And there is some numbers at the top. 5410. 5410, and then below that it appears to be, I can't tell if that's a 0 or a Q. Either 08 Golf 11 or Quebec 8 Golf 11. Those are the only numbers on it. Nothing around the hex or the base. Okay, so that's what I see. This is what it looks like. I don't know what those numbers are. Like I say, when you touch something that feels like it's from Temu, usually you can tell. I don't know if it is an OEM piece of crap. And supposedly, this is the second one from the other shop. Allegedly, according to the notes. Let me see what I can find for us. I'm gonna look for an OEM. If we can't get an OEM, I'm gonna look for an aftermarket that somebody has in stock. That might work. Not a huge fan of the aftermarket O2 sensors. And I don't care if the OEM is made by Denso or the OEM is made by NTK. There's always a difference. And I know people will argue that till the end of time. I can only share with you my experience. I'm not in manufacturing, and perhaps the one from Denso that is OEM manufacturer for GM comes off the same assembly line and goes in a different box. Maybe that's true, but that hasn't been my experience, and that's all I can speak from is my personal experience. I found this in OEM, and as a matter of fact, when I was looking them up just through the parts stores, it said Denso is the OEM manufacturer. However, the Denso sensor was $20 more than an OEM, so I went with OEM. Why wouldn't you? I called, the guy pulled it off the shelf and said the part number, the GM part number that I gave him, don't remember what it was, 13 something 707, was laser etched right on the O2 sensor itself. So we know for a fact that this one that we took out 100% ain't, OEM. So we'll wait for that to show up. We'll put that in, and I assume his problem's going to be resolved. In which case, we'll look at what's going on with the steering wheel. Like I say, probably a broken clock spring. In the meantime, we're going to get nuked, eat scones, probably bring in another car, something like that. Stand by. Apple pie baseball Chevrolet, actually made in America. I have not seen that in a really long time on General Motors. Doobie-doo, yes sir. It's got Denso written on it. It's got a bunch of other numbers written on it. I can't see because I don't have my glasses. Looks like a 1244707 maybe. Some other numbers. The word Denso looks noticeably different than the one from Temu. And also our connector feels like America. And that also has some hieroglyphics on it of some sort. We're going to take and install this. I tried Googling that part number and a couple different variations and combinations of numbers of the one that we took off, and I wasn't able to find anything. What's crazy is the number of shops around here that actually use eBay Motors and Amazon, and to me that just blows my mind. There are several shops close by because I've discussed, I'll go there to fix cars for them. They'll bring cars here for me to fix, and I'll ask, where'd you get the part, this and that and the other thing, yada yada yada, and it's always the same story. And I'm just like, that just baffles me. And then they're baffled. They're baffled by me not getting my parts from Amazon and such. Looks like somebody's had this whole wiring harness out here. It's just kind of, every single clip on it is broke down there and just kind of hanging. I'm gonna zip tie it right here, just out of the way. I guess we could zip tie it back to the water pump. I'm just gonna put it out of the way. Prior to doing that though, let's fire it up and let's see if our stalling problem is resolved. Let's see if our O2 sensor voltages are resolved, and see if our fuel trim goes back to normal, and see if this sensor is responsive. If it's not, I don't have a plan B. And that's a great diagnostic plan. When you determine that, okay, it's time to change this part because of the test that I made, ask yourself, if this doesn't work, what am I gonna do next? When you don't have that answer, then you should have arrived at the actual answer. So my answer to myself to that question is, I don't know, because this is the only thing that's logical based on our evidence. Enhance. Unenhance. We're going to go back in. We're going to skip out of the OEM data. OEM data, you always have the chance of having substituted values. So we're going to go right back into generic OBD2. I'm going to go ahead and turn the key on in the vehicle. I like it raw dog when it comes to data and other things. And using generic OBD2, we should never, I say this with a grain of salt because, oh, that's interesting. Did you see that? That's weird. I never cleared the codes in this. Right? We've never cleared the codes. What were we doing? We were key on, engine off. We unhooked the O2 sensor. The battery maintainer has been on it the entire time at 13.9 volts. The battery has not been dead. Okay, that's scary. I never cleared the codes, folks. I don't even think I accidentally hit the button because it's, I think to even clear the codes, it's a couple button push process. Erase codes, are you sure? Yeah, see, it's a two-step process. Huh. Do 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 do. That's weird. The car's just been sitting here. Interesting. All right, well, I'm gonna let these data PIDs get up and after it. We're gonna select what we want. We're gonna select our O2 sensor. We're gonna select our fuel trims. We're gonna have a little look-see. Let's see here. Engine's still relatively warmed up. And whoops. Let's see, we want O2 sensor 1 and 2. And we're gonna do some fuel trim. I've probably already scrolled past it, I'm sure. Okay, this guy is getting click happy. And TR short. I long. Long and short. That's the long and short of it. Show selected. Ready? Let's fire this pig up. Contact. Why in the world? Oh, look at that. That front O2 sensor started working like a champ right from the get-go. Why do you suppose that cleared the codes? And we can see we're going all the way down almost to 0 volts. Our short-term fuel trim is going to start making some corrections. I'm going to let it sit here and warm up. And we'll likely have to go drive it to get the long-term to populate. So I'm going to let this sit here for a little while and see where it ends up. Because last time, looked like it started out working good. And then it immediately went to working poorly. And the very lovely Mrs. O just walked out here. What's up, Mrs. O?
3,500 carrier bearing.
Oh, no, it's not a job I'd be interested in.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking, though.
I think so.
Yep.
Get up.
went ahead and just bumped the RPMs up here just to look at the switch ratio. And she's bang on the money. We got it. This is an easy fix. And there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that we have this repaired. So we can see our max value here is like 860, 870 millivolts, and it drops down, to, I don't know, maybe what, 10 millivolts, somewhere's in that neighborhood. We can see it up here, yeah, about 7 to 10 millivolts. So this is what we would expect. So pretty cool. Looks like our rear O2 is working. Looks like our cat has lit off. You know, the converter appears to work. Now let's do the same test that we did before. You know, when we try to force it rich or force it lean, we don't really need to force it rich. We can. It will force rich after it sees a lean event. So I'm going to go in and pump the brakes, create a vacuum leak. The O2 sensors are going to see it as a lean condition. What we expect to see is we expect our fuel trims to drive really high. They're going to go up, you know, if we keep pumping the brakes, these fuel trim numbers are going to go up into 20 percentile, at least the short term will. And then when we quit pumping the brakes, we're going to watch that fuel trim fall right back off. We should see both of these O2 sensors respond. So let me go do that. Grab my long screwdriver, reach in the car and pump the brakes. You might hear the engine chuggle, but it won't stall. It shouldn't. If the sensors work correctly. I'm pumping the brakes right now. I'm creating a big vacuum leak. I just quit pumping the brakes. Okay. So yeah, we should be able to see here. I wasn't over here watching, but I can only imagine that our fuel trims went high, and now they make instant corrections, and it's going to take them kind of a while to steady out because they don't know what just happened. You know, we just created this big vacuum leak. And this is also good to see here too. So the time from when the front O2 sensor went lean to the time that the rear O2 sensor went lean, this little gap in between here, which was several seconds, that's good because that shows us that our converter, wow, you going through puberty, fella? It shows that our converter has the ability to store oxygen. So, you know, this is a similar test that the vehicle will run on itself for oxygen storage capacity, or OSC testing on converters. And then it looks for this time basis from the time the front one went lean to the time the rear one went lean, and if it falls within its threshold, then it deems the converter A-OK. So we'll have to drive it to get our fuel trims to populate correctly. Fuel trims at an idle, particularly on some GMs, aren't always a good indicator. We have purge opening and closing. We have lots of stuff going on, as you can see with our short-term fuel trim. So I don't get too excited about it. I drive it, let it populate, and see what our fuel trims are when we're all done. But I'm confident that we have this car fixed. And the problem with this car was crappy eBay and aftermarket parts that the shop chose to use. We'll leave this one at that, folks. Let this be a lesson to you. If you own a shop, you gotta stop buying your stuff on eBay and stop buying it on Amazon and wherever you get this crap from. Just stop it. At least buy something from the parts store. Buy an NTK, buy a Denso, buy something that has a name brand on it. If you're getting it on Amazon and it's $9, it's not gonna work, ever. Just stop. It's annoying. You piss me off and you're annoying. And also, folks, let's assume this was an AC Delco, or this was a Denso, or it was a name brand. Also keep in mind that just because it is, doesn't mean it's good. Just because it's new doesn't mean it works. And that's the trap the shop fell into. They may be dumb and buy crappy parts, and they might not, know that, they're like, oh, it's new. It can't be that. Oh, we'll do it again. Well, it can't be that because we've done it twice. Well, guess what? It can be, and it is. And we just proved it. Just because it's new, it doesn't mean it works. And quit buying junk. And that's all I'm going to say. Now we're happy, and this guy's going to be happy. We're going to move on and check to see what's going on with the clock spring. I assume just a bad clock spring. We're going to check it out for sure because we don't like to assume. And then we're not going to go on Amazon and buy a clock spring for a nickel. Insty. Facebook. You know where we're at, folks. And just remember, viewers, if I can do it, you can do it. As long as you're not buying your stuff on Amazon. Thanks for watching.